220,000 Americans dead. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America.
Well, that comment didn't age very well, did it, Joe Obama? I mean, after all, even if we hold to the statistics we have been told have been completely accurate on the death toll, 200,000 under Donald Trump. You've been in office just over 15 months, and the number is now over, quote, 1 million. That means 800,000 on your watch, with all of the vaccines and all of the mandates and all of the procedures and the profound wisdom of Dr. Anthony Fauci. And yet, you're still president. But then again, you can't even keep America's babies fed.
Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth.
Every day we wake up in America and finding more and more of our freedoms have just kind of gone. We're watching common sense gone. We're watching even things like settled, real science gone. We're watching fiction being presented as truth and truth being called dangerous. A conspiracy. I like what Jimmy Dore recently said about conspiracy. He did a full report on the fact that now apparently we know that the WHO, the World Health Organization, has aligned with the United States and other countries to basically give up our sovereignty, sign it over to WHO, so that during the next pandemic, which, by the way, the big meeting in Switzerland happens, I believe it's next week, among the world leaders, and I'm not just simply talking about elected officials, but the billionaire oligarchs will all gather and, lay out their plot for their globalism. So you know that the next plandemic, the outline will be presented, and they'll brainstorm it around the table and come up with what they're going to unleash next. But that said, signing over our sovereignty to WHO, that in the next pandemic, they will determine what mandates are followed, what procedures are followed, and you will take love potion number 9. You will have a digital vax passport, and if it is not kept current, there will be penalties, like cut off from your credit, your bank accounts, etc., etc., etc. When some of us talked about that in the very beginning of the plandemic in 2020, when we were talking about that even in March of 2020, we were censored. We were kicked off social media platforms. We were called conspiracists. I love what Jimmy Dore has now said. And Jimmy Dore is one of those guys on the left that really is having an awakening. And he has said, you know what? I've just decided that conspiracy really now means spoiler alert. That's great. That is a spot-on, accurate translation, depiction of what's happening. It's simply just that. It's a spoiler alert. Because it can't be continually a conspiracy if everything we're talking about as a conspiracy keeps coming true. Look at what this president has done to this country, and many of us predicted it, and not simply because we have the gift of prophecy, but this guy was a nothing the entire time he was in Congress. He took credit for things that he really didn't do. He was, Barack Obama's boy, who, Barack only had him there so that he could hang on to the established, Democrat voting base. That was it. And Barack really didn't want a VP that could outshine him. Well, he picked the right guy. And now Barack basically runs the Biden White House from behind the curtains. And every once in a while we get treated to the Wizard of Oz coming out and drooling on himself, talking incoherently, and recently finishing up a speech, turning and shaking hands with thin air. Absolutely no one there. But we have this baby formula crisis, which I talked about a couple of days ago, which immediately Jen Psaki, known as Peppermint Patty, and as abysmal as she was, even the liberal White House press corps wants her back compared to the black lesbian person of color who's up there now because she is a complete incompetent dolt who she doesn't do anything well. She can't read her notes at all. She's constantly acting as if it's the first time she's ever read through what it is that she has in front of her. She doesn't speak well, and she really is missing an incredible credential to do that job. She doesn't lie well either. I mean, it's just very obvious she's in way overhead, hasn't got a clue what she's doing. At least Jen Psaki was smart enough to know she didn't want to go down with the Titanic, and she jumped ship to go to PMSNBC and be with Joy Reid and, Mr. Magoo and his pole dancing wife Mika Brzezinski and the rest of the failures over there. But at least over there, you'll be well paid for it, and you kind of have a life when the cameras aren't on. So, I guess we can give kudos to Jen Psaki for knowing when it was time to abandon ship. But even Jen Psaki could spin together a coherent lie, as she did on the whole baby formula crisis, other than telling mothers, hey, go to a doctor. Wait, what? I need formula. I need to feed my child. Now, again, the CDC stepped in and shut down a manufacturer of baby formula in the state of Michigan in February, claiming that it was unsafe, children were dying, etc. Now, we certainly don't want an unsafe product on the line, but many people are saying this was a problem back in July of 2021. Bum, ba-dum, bum. That was when people first noticed there was a problem. In other words, supply chain issue. This goes back to lockdowns. This goes back to the freebie money that Biden was promising everybody, and huge minimum wage increases needed to happen. And so what happened was workers didn't return to work. And some of our baby formula manufacturers, as early as July 21, were saying, hey, we're not running full lines right now because we don't have enough employees. So when Biden is taking his victory lap on what a great job he's done at creating jobs, he's created nothing. People were unfurloughed and allowed to go back to work. But he likes to brag, its unemployment rate right now is at 3.9%. Well, pre-pandemic it was at 3.1. So does Trump get credit for that? Of course not. Of course not. People are not going back to work. And you got all these people out there because yumheads like Bernie Sanders are promising them, you know what, you really, minimum wage ought to be $20 an hour. It ought to be $20 an hour. I don't want to pay somebody $20 an hour who has a $3 an hour work ethic. It's really not any more complicated than that. People do not show up. It is abysmal what the work ethic has become in this country. And that, again, lies right back at the feet of the party that keeps telling everybody, we're going to give you everything. Free education, free. Everything is free. So this is a problem created by the Biden administration. People who work in these places, a lot of them are mothers working on an assembly line. They're to the place now where, you know what, they're not going back to work. It's actually costing them more money to go back to work because of inflation and gas and the transportation to get there. These are all Biden-created problems. But what's his solution? He's now using the Defense Emergency Act, which is an act reserved for war, to speed up production. Really. So now all of a sudden, anybody and everybody is going to be able to basically put evaporated milk in powdered form in a can and sell it as formula. That's his solution. That's what he's going to do. The Democrats keep looking for ways to try to divert your attention from what an abysmal failure and train wreck Joe Biden is. He has killed this economy. He has killed our energy independence, and that's why you're paying $6 a gallon for gas. He has absolutely destroyed our southern border, and people are just pouring in. By the way, there's plenty of baby formula at the border. I guess you could go down there and get some. Jen Psaki's response is, we are going to do the right thing and feed these babies when they come here. Nobody wants to see any baby suffer. But we're talking about people who've entered the country illegally. So again, the message is illegal people coming here are much more important than the Americans who live here, work here, sweat here, labor here, die here. You will wait. We're going to feed them first. Okay. So what does this party do? They know they're going to get killed in the midterm, so they create the whole abortion issue with the leak from the Supreme Court because they want to get their base revved up. And so what they're doing right now, they can't win on any real issues, so they've got to go to cancel culture and to wokeism to try to keep people engaged. This week, it was learned that the Biden administration, in presenting their budget, has dropped any reference in their budget to any programs that were specifically for mothers. The term is no longer mother. It is now birthing person. Yes, birthing person. And in fact, the Democrats even brought to Capitol Hill an expert witness to testify under oath before Congress. Yes, men can give birth.
What do you say a woman is?
I believe that everyone can identify for themselves.
Okay. Do you believe then that men can become pregnant and have abortions?
Yes.
And of course, this ties right into the abortion distraction right now. That's what this is about. This is about, Facebook and other social media platforms putting out their little pregnant man emoji and memes. People getting booed off stages at universities for saying really controversial things like the science of two sexes only is settled, and they get booed off stages. We have a generation coming out of our colleges and our universities who will walk into your child's classroom and be their teachers who honestly believe there's 10 genders, 14 genders, 50 genders. You could be gender non-binary, gender fluid, etc., 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 etc. Bottom line, men cannot give birth. Men do not need abortions. Delusional women, confused, who had their bodies mutilated to look like men, but somehow their reproductive organs were left intact and they got pregnant and gave birth. That is not a man giving birth. That is the bearded woman from the circus giving birth. Can we stop participating in the mass psychosis and insanity, bullhawk, and blatant socialist propaganda of accepting the abnormal as normal and making sure that anything that is normal or was normal or part of our traditional heritage is now vilified, deemed as racist, homophobic, and it's gotta go. It is the ultimate perversion, not only of the culture, the perversion of the sexes. Because on the one hand, again, when you really break it down in logic, it makes no sense. They claim to be the party of women and women's rights, yet they're going to allow dudes to compete against women in women's sports and just crush them. I guess women aren't that important, huh? We're going to allow transgendered individuals like Caitlyn Bruce Jenner, be accepted on media outlets like Fox News, which I refer to as faux pas news. That is not a conservative news outlet. Stop thinking that it is. The only one on there remotely worth watching is Tucker Carlson, period. Sean Hannity, five-line Hannity, and he's not a rhino, but he is a mino. What's a mino? MAGA in name only. Mark it down. Mark it down. He's still trying to run interference. Say, the election 2020 didn't work out like we thought, but it was okay. It was okay. Yeah. Okay. Again, we watch these things happen right in front of us, and then we're told what you just saw you didn't see. And people buy into this just psychosis and this insanity. And looking at a dude that is actually a female, or looking at a female that is actually a dude, and saying, that's okay, they're okay, we need to embrace, we need to promote, and we need to stand with men who get pregnant. That is absolute stupidity and insanity on steroids. Sorry to be that blunt.